Good evening. I'm Susan Craighead with the League of Women Voters of Naperville. There are two local referendums on our ballot this fall. The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County is asking for a rate increase to maintain and improve woodlands, wetlands, and prairies. And Indian Prairie Community Unit School District 204 is asking for an approval to issue school building bonds for improvements to security, building maintenance, and classroom updates. The language in the ballot referendums can be hard to understand. What does it mean for voters? And what exactly are the districts asking? A reminder that the League of Women Voters neither endorses nor opposes these ballot referendums. This meeting is intended to be for voter education only on the proposed referendums. Our panelists tonight are Dan Hebreard, the president of the DuPage Forest Preserve District. He was elected at large to the Forest Preserve District's Board of Commissioners in 2018. Daniel holds degrees in Parks and Recreation Management and Business Administration, and worked for two local recreation departments before joining the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County as a ranger in 2005. Matt Shipley has been the chief school business official for Indian Prairie since 2021. In this role, he oversees the budget and accounting functions, supports operations, building operations, safety and security, and employee benefits. Prior to being appointed, Matt was a controller for District 204 from 2017 to 2021. He graduated from the University of Illinois in 2004 with a master's in accounting science. A current Naperville resident, Matt grew up in Naperville and has been a longtime resident of the western suburbs. Thank you both for joining us tonight to share your knowledge and experiences. For those attending, please put your questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of each of the presentations. Dan, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Appreciate the introduction. I'll just give a brief introduction. I am a lifelong DuPage resident, born and raised in Downers Grove. I went to Downers Grove North. My degree is in Parks and Recreation Management from Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois. I met my lovely wife at my first job at the City of Palos Heights Recreation Department. We've been married for 21 years. She's a teacher. We make our home in Woodridge. I have two children. Kevin, who is a sophomore at Downers Grove North, and Leah, who's a fifth grader. I did start at the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County in 2005 as a park ranger. At that time, I went back and got my master's in business administration to Benedictine University here locally, and enjoyed that job immensely. Actually did run for office in 2018, so I resigned as a ranger after winning that election, and I was reelected in 2022. And we do have a ballot initiative, so I'm here to share a little bit about what's going on in the forest preserves and why we are on the ballot as a referendum issue. So, Preserve for You, and apologies here, let me get set up. That's your Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. We fund the district's unique mission, of course, which is flora and fauna, for the pleasure, education, and recreation of our residents. And the facts tonight for the 2024 referendum, it is titled the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County to improve and maintain woodlands, prairies, wetlands, waterways, and wildlife habitat. And that is the mission I just mentioned about getting people out in nature. And that beautiful map shows all those green spaces, actually 1/8 of the whole county. So we are the land leader in the state of Illinois at 13% for the Forest Preserve District. And I mean, all of us are landowners who are taxpayers. It comes out to about 26,000 acres, over 60 forest preserves. The beautiful thing about those 175 miles of trails is that does not count the rails of trails. The county actually maintains both the Prairie Path and the Great Western, plus all our local trails. So I want to think we have over 250 or 300 miles. Those 47 miles of rivers and streams, we're working very hard to restore those, removing dams and remeandering and really improving the quality. 31 lakes for your fishing pleasure and boating in a couple, 7 education sites there. So we have something for everybody. You see lots of programs and even golf. So how are we funded? Well, we are mostly taxpayer funded by property tax. As you can see, municipalities and DuPage County has a plethora of different mix of taxes. We are not lucky enough to have that, but we are less than 2 cents of every dollar, actually about a penny and a half of your tax bill. And this is that breakdown. Now, this is a generic breakdown for the county, so yours might be slightly different, but we're typically going to come out to about $1.50 out of every $100 you pay. As you can see, that's one of the lowest amounts on your tax bill, and we like to think it's an incredible value for our residents. So the last time we were on the ballot was 2006, so that's why the number that year is referenced here. You can see we bought over 600 acres. We actually doubled our visitation because during COVID, we were over 6 million visits each year of the 2 years during the pandemic. We've slightly decreased on about 5.5 million, but that of course is quite a bit more than we saw nearly 18 years ago. And restoration, as I mentioned, we're doing all those river restorations. Of course, we do woodlands and prairies as well, and that cost has tripled. So that is one of the driving factors as we do more restoration. Of course, it's costing us quite a bit more. And we were a little bit larger percentage of 2006 tax bill. And most of the reason we've gone down is because we've actually stayed fairly flat over the last 18 years. And I think a lot of other agencies have gone up a bit. So that's why we've come down a penny and a half there, or 1.5 cents. As you can see here, it's a breakdown of the last decade. We had our high point there from 2014 to 2016. We actually had a buyout for some of our top expensive long-term employees that saved us quite a bit annually. So we actually shrunk from 320 full-time employees down to 280. We're still very close to that. I think we're at about 285, so we don't really have the opportunity to shrink again. But we've been able to keep those taxes, like I said, mostly flat. And so I referred to the referendum, the title. This gets into some of the rates. It can be a little bit confusing, so I think I will leave this for a moment for you to try to digest. I will get into the dollars on the next slide, and I think that's a little bit clearer and a little bit better opportunity for hopefully you to understand exactly the tax implications. So as you can see, we are about $1.50. As I mentioned, we're $2.30 of every $100. So we are proposing to go to about $1.90. And what that would mean, as you see, is about 97 cents per month, or $11.67 per year. Choose DuPage says an average home in DuPage is about $308,000. So that would be about $35 tax increase annually, or a little under $3 a month. But we know we have a very diverse community here in DuPage, and we have, of course, $1 million home, but we just put the $500,000 on here. Again, that would be a little under $5 a month and at about $58 annually. And this is for operations, so this would be annual moving forward. So some of the things that we want to continue to do and work towards is funding to protect open space for the future generations. You can see the clean air and water. You know, when we're doing these river restorations and the dam removals, what people hopefully are getting educated on is the opportunity to have much cleaner water. We know we do have a few areas throughout the county that do have drinking water through wells, and so we're concerned. We want to make sure that we have the cleanest water we can. One of the biggest areas of ownership, of course, is along the Salt Creek and the East Branch and the West Branch of the DuPage River, and we take in a lot of storm water for our residents. One of the actual projects up at the Preserve at Oak Meadows that we did a little under a decade ago, we took in 20 million gallons more when we reduced our golf course from 27 holes to 18 and remeandered that river. And so we're really proud of that because it's a golf preserve where we have an oak woodland and savanna and some prairie. So we want to continue to do those things at each preserve as often as we can. Over the last 18 years, we've done about 8,500 acres of restoration. But with 26,000 acres of ownership, we're just a third of the way through. And this is a great picture to see where we have mostly DuPage was ag, of course. for several decades. And when we saved Springbrook Prairie, which is in that green box, you can see that all around it in the bottom picture in 2024, it's been developed, except for the golf course there in the bottom very left adjacent to our Springbrook Prairie. We did a river restoration there. Springbrook Creek is beautiful and actually did a lot of our mussel work. And if we pass this, we are committing to trying to acquire 250 acres more. We are actually close to a deal with the Bulger family that was been talked about in open session. And that is a link in between DuPage Forest Preserve and the Morton Arboretum. But then there'll be hopefully 200 more if we can close that 35 acres. So if we pass, we can continue to work on the master plan. We passed a master plan in 2019. It was 32 projects, 15 initiatives. And we want to make sure, as we're over halfway through, that we can complete that, because we know a lot of those were deferred maintenance, were bridges that we're going to have to be closed if we're not replaced. And of course, building structures, and then the restoration that we discussed. And we're going to be able to continue to move along through that process. One of the things we're most proud of at the Forest Preserve District is our excellent financial record. And you can see we've got 35 years running of excellence in financial reporting. We are AAA rated and bonded. Of course, we do get audited each year. And even the last couple of years, you can look on our website, and we have a very friendly version of our all of our finances. And so easy to read. And so we've won awards for that actually the last couple of years. So all of our meetings are on our website for the last decade. So you can look back at all the action from 2014 on if you're interested. And so we'll continue to be very transparent with open checkbook and open payroll on our website and Open Meetings Act and all of those, again, online. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is, we continue to work towards fighting against, different animals struggling in the area. So we have our Blanding's turtle program, which is an endangered turtle. We're very proud to be on the great grand turtles of that program, and it expanded into 6 counties around Chicagoland. We're also working on the Heinz Emerald dragonfly, which is an endangered dragonfly. One of the reasons that 355 extension from 55 south to 80 did not get built is because the Heinz Emerald dragonfly habitat. And we're proud to have created habitat at Waterfall Glen and continue to work on that. And the most imperiled species in the state of Illinois, probably the Midwest, maybe the United States, is the freshwater mussel. And if you do not know, we have the Urban Stream Research Center in Blackwell Forest Preserve. And that is where we actually grow and propagate freshwater mussels. And I'm proud to say that we actually did a short movie, not as short as the cicada video, but a 19-minute movie that we partnered with the Conservation Foundation to educate people about the importance of mussels. It's one of, I think, only 25 or 26 facilities in the whole United States. It's the only one in the state of Illinois, and it's here in DuPage at the Forest Reserve. And we've grown thousands and thousands of mussels for our for our rivers and streams, and for adjacent counties to have some of those mussels. So we contract with them to bring them in. And with that, I think I did pretty well on time, because I want to make sure I'm able to answer any questions about the Forest Reserve, about this referendum, or anything you can throw my way.
So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them. I wanted to know, when we think about restoration, sometimes my first thought is how much I might enjoy the Forest Preserve. Personally, just walking through, seeing all the improvements, of which there seem to have been many over the last 20 or so years since I've been using the forest preserves heavily. But how does that affect sustainability in the environment? Do you think about that in these improvements?
Absolutely. It's incredibly important for sustainability. One of the partners we have is the Morton Arboretum. They're one of the leaders for the Chicago Region Trees Initiative, which is trying to make sure that we have the next generation of oak trees. So one of the things about woodland restoration, of course, we are removing invasive species. And one of the things invasive species like buckthorn and honeysuckle block is new oak trees. And so when we clear those out, not only do we get wildflowers and a diverse group of plants that make our area much more sustainable for the birds and the bugs, but we will hopefully get the next generation of oaks, because we want to make sure that as they're aging all at the same pace here, and they're all the very similar age, we want to make sure we continue to be strong oak woodlands in the Chicagoland region. And the same thing with the prairies. We're the prairie state, yet there's so few prairies. And we want to continue to have opportunities to bring remnant prairies back and to create new prairies. I mentioned a little bit on the wetlands and the waterways, and those are critical because, as we know, we've had some flood situations. It sounds like we have some long-term DuPage residents. They probably remember the 87, I believe it was, flood, and that created stormwater management for the county that we've been a partner with. And then we have, continued to remeander these rivers and improve them. And that's actually been a partner as well with the DuPage River Salt Creek Work Group, which is all of the municipalities basically partnering together to make sure that we have clean water. Did that help answer the question?
Yes, certainly. So besides the Bolter property, are there other properties on your radar?
There are. Again, we have identified hopefully another 200 acres that we'd like to purchase. Of course, that's all closed session confidential, so I cannot tell you the locations. But yeah, we're very excited if this passes. We know that there's limited number of properties available in not developed areas throughout DuPage if you drive around. Few and far between, but we've identified 250 that would make a lot of sense to add to our 26,000 acres.
So one of our audience members is asking, what challenges do you anticipate to passing this referendum? It seems to be a bargain for the residents. Why would someone vote no to what appears to be a relatively modest increase?
Well, there are certain people who feel that their taxes are already high and they may just vote no because they don't want to see an increase. We just want to make sure everybody has the facts and is educated. And I think that's probably the biggest impediment is we just want to make sure we reach people. We're excited. This has really been something where I've gotten to talk to a lot of Rotary groups, a lot of League of Women Voters, some Chamber of Commerce, and different groups. Whoever's inviting us out, we send staff. I'm happy to go as well. And so just educating about all the exciting things that, people typically don't know about the Heinz Emerald dragonfly or freshwater mussels. And we get to tell our story a little bit, and we love telling the story because it really does add value to our community. So we certainly hope it's going to pass. We have people working hard. The Conservation Foundation has information if you're looking for information that's not found on our website. Of course, we have to remain neutral to give you the facts. And so that's what you will find on our website. You're more than welcome to look. Like I said, the Conservation Foundation has some other information, but we think it's also a great value. So we're excited to tell the story.
And so some of this increase your budget goes to operations. So does that affect safety, like the rangers or the authorities that we see?
No, so we have our own police department in-house, and we have our park rangers, which is what I used to be. The park rangers are not sworn. They're almost like community service officers in some ways. Between them, there's a little over 50 between those two groups. And it does. We did a study a couple years ago that DuPage is one of the safest counties in Illinois. And the forest preserves, in conjunction with the sheriff, keeping residents safe. People feel very safe in the forest preserves. And we want to continue to have that high level of confidence and comfort that people feel coming out of the forest preserves. So that is one of the things, because we will have to look at potentially not filling a position here or there based on the economics moving forward. And so a lot of factors go into the operations. I mean, it's all of our supplies, it's all of our staffing. So there will be some difficult decisions if we do not pass this.
So Dan will stay, I think, through the whole program. So if you think of any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. But now let's hear from Matt Shipley about District 204.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again for having me. Let me make sure I get this shared. I think my presentation is now shared to the group. Thank you again for the opportunity. Similar to Dan, we do have some similarities in our story, but tonight we're just trying to inform our voters on the referendum that is on the ballot for Indian Prairie 204. I'll briefly be able to share an introduction about the district if you're not familiar with our district, or even if you are, there may be some pieces that are new to you or just friendly reminders. I'll talk about some of the facility and operating needs that really led to us pursuing this referendum proposal. I'll show the specific funding proposal and our anticipated benefits, and then there is time for questions. I also have about a 3-minute video that I think will translate okay on the Zoom. I can show as well, but if we have any issues with that, we'll deal with it when we get there. So Indian Prairie 204 is the 4th largest school district in the state of Illinois. We have between 25 and 26,000 students every year. We have over 34 schools. You may be most familiar with our 3 comprehensive high schools: Neuqua Valley, Metea Valley, and Waubonsie Valley. But we have 7 middle schools and 21 elementary schools that feed into that system. We're a K-12 unit district. We also have some other programs. Again, I just want to make sure everyone's aware of, because they're programs that are important to us as well. We have a preschool. We have over 700 preschool students each year that come through the district. We have an alternative high school. So we do have a high school program that for students where maybe that large comprehensive high school experience wasn't the right fit for them. We offer an alternative high school that has alternative pathways for those students. And that's currently housed at our Wheatland facility, which is on 103rd and Route 59. So again, if you're familiar with the area, that's a pretty high trafficked area where that facility is. And we also have our transition program. So this is for students 18 to 23 years old with special needs as they transition from high school into young adulthood into the workforce. This is an additional program to help those students transition as well. Socioeconomically, we're a diverse district. 18% of our students qualify as low income. 11% of our students qualify as English learners. That's a percentage that is increased significantly, almost doubled over the past 5 years. We now have over 4,000 students that are coming into our buildings where English is not their primary language. And then ethnically, we're a fairly diverse district as well. It has slightly more Asian students than Caucasian, but we also have significant populations of Hispanic and African American students as well. A lot of points of pride, too many to single out. I'll just talk about some of the most recent ones. One of our high schools, Neuqua Valley High School, was named a Blue Ribbon School within the last couple of weeks. There's only about 400 Blue Ribbon schools in the country. So we were proud to obtain that, and that's actually the second time Neuqua's received that recognition. Last week, Niche.com rated our district the 10th best district in the state of Illinois. There's about over 800 school districts in Illinois, and we were 10th best. We were the second ranked unit district. So of unit districts that have that K-12 programming, again, we only had one other district that they ranked ahead of us in the state. With that said, we do have some facility and operating needs that really led to this referendum proposal. We started in 2023 a comprehensive facility assessment of every one of our buildings. This was a team of architects, engineers, and safety professionals who reviewed all buildings and came up with a 10-year master facility plan for the buildings. Now, why did we feel that was necessary? It's kind of shown here. From 1985, from the late 80s to the early 2000s, we were one of the fastest growing school districts in the state, if not the country, for some of those years. We had a significant number of buildings built in that time period, and now those buildings are all kind of turning 30, 35 years old at the same time. These are critical ages for needing to address building maintenance and needs. We're at the end of life for a lot of significant building systems, such as roofs, HVAC, boiler systems, even exterior systems like concrete and asphalt. All these buildings are nearing the end of the useful lives for significant needs, and they're all doing it kind of at the same time. In addition, we have 3 or 4 buildings that are even older that were built prior to that window. And we really should have been starting to improve those buildings or address deferred maintenance in those buildings, 10 or 15 years ago. But we were so preoccupied with building new buildings, we really didn't go back and have the time to set money aside or improve those buildings. And so we went into that process knowing that we would have some challenges. We also knew going in, and that from a funding standpoint, we are funded significantly less than some of our peer districts. And so when somebody says, well, you knew the age of these buildings, you knew at some point you would need to repair roofs or deal with masonry issues, where was money going? Why wasn't it put towards facilities? This is sort of why. as a district, we receive about $2,000 less per student per year than the state average. Again, with 25 to 26,000 students, that works out to having about $50 million less per year, every year, than the average school district in the state. Showing here 7 other comparable districts. These are all high-performing K-12 school districts. You'll see Naperville 203 is probably our nearest district, kind of our sister district on the other half of Naperville. We're spending anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 less per student than those peer districts. And again, specifically compared to Naperville 203, we're spending about $3,000 less. Why this is, Illinois really relies on property taxes as the primary funding source for education. Again, kind of similar to the discussion about the forest preserve earlier. 78% of our revenues come from property taxpayers within district boundaries. And as a district, we do have a little bit lower commercial or industrial wealth than some of our peer districts. And again, also have that lower than the state average as well. So the results of that facility study really identified 5 key needs for district facilities. The first was safety and security. We believe safety and security is the #1 priority of our district. We want to make sure our students, our staff, and our community are safe when they're in our buildings. Buildings that were designed and built going on 30 plus years ago now were built in a very different environment when it came to safety and security concerns. So there are some design improvements we need in our buildings to really maximize and ensure student safety to the fullest extent possible. There's also just the need to replace infrastructure and building systems tied to safety and security. So the number one priority for us when it comes to safety and security is sounds kind of basic, but it's doors and locks. And doors that have been open and closed hundreds of times a day by middle school students, by excited elementary students going out to recess. Those doors, those lock systems need to be replaced and upgraded. And that's what we're looking to do with a portion of this funding. It already mentioned building infrastructure, but continue to address building infrastructure needs, both what's sort of already needed right now, sort of the deferred maintenance needs, but ensure that there's money going forward in the future as well. So that covers roofing, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, health, life, safety needs, ADA compliance. So again, ADA compliance and the expectations in that area are different than they were 30 years ago. We want to ensure our buildings are as accessible as possible. Learning environments. So at Indian Prairie, we take great pride in the number of teachers we have that are graduates of the district that are coming back to be educators in our district. But one of the downsides of that is they show up excited on that first day of being a new teacher. And a lot of times they walk into a classroom and say, this room looks exactly the same as it did when I was a student here 15 or 20 years ago. We're asking our students to learn differently. We're asking our teachers to engage and teach differently. And our actual learning environments, our classrooms largely look the same as they did when these buildings were built. We have 3 buildings that are even a little further behind than the rest of the buildings, that being Waubonsie Valley High School, Hill Middle School, and Gregory Middle School. So there is a need for additional investment in those buildings as well. And then the final piece we identified was this concept of how much operating money are we not using efficiently because we haven't been able to reinvest in our buildings. We've identified about $4 to $6 million of annual operating savings we believe can be attained by reinvesting on the capital end. So that is things like energy efficiency, LED lighting, reducing repairs and maintenance costs, and then some programming improvements as well. So being able to house our STEPS program, house our alternative high school program in district-owned buildings, whereas, for example, the STEPS program is currently in leased space. So getting into the specific referendum details, I'm showing the ballot language here currently. As mentioned at the beginning, we know ballot language can sometimes be a little opaque. This is required ballot language by state of Illinois election law. But I will point out this is a capital referendum. All these dollars that we're asking for can only be used to invest in our facilities. They cannot be used for operating needs. You will see kind of listed in the middle of this question some of the significant needs we've already identified. So safety and security, building infrastructure, and addressing learning environments and energy efficiency. We believe this is the appropriate time to bring this forward as a proposal because we have a significant amount of debt that is maturing in 2026. So currently district taxpayers pay about a 37-cent tax rate. That's about 7% of your total tax bill paid to Indian Prairie. And that money is going to pay off bonds that were issued in 2006. Again, similar to the Forest Preserve, 2006 was the last referendum the district had. These bonds are maturing, and so we're really asking to just extend that tax rate going forward to enable another round of building improvements and to enable a new round of borrowing. This would be a temporary tax. It would last as long as the bonds last. Again, we're not really asking for a tax increase per se, as much as we're asking to continue the current rate. Shown here just kind of reiterates, regardless of the fair market value, it would not be a tax rate or tax increase for district taxpayers. What we are really asking is for district taxpayers to forego a tax decrease starting in 2027. That decrease would be about $93 for a $100,000 fair market value property. We do believe we're at a critical juncture in our facilities, and that if this referendum's not successful, we would need to address critical capital needs with operating funds. That could also mean increasing the deferred maintenance and adding dollars to the total cost as a result of deferring that improvements even further, whether that's through construction inflation, whether that's through the need to do things on an emergency basis as opposed to being proactive, and whether that's just due to learning disruption. So, having a facility where we're needing to make emergency unscheduled improvements and disrupting the learning going on in those buildings. Again, we already spend $2,000 less per student than the state average. Needing to use operating funds towards capital would further grow that discrepancy and could result in programming cuts, larger class sizes, things that we don't want to do because we believe we need educators, we need people in our buildings supporting our students. We believe our programming that we offer is valuable to our students and our community. I'll hit one other point, and that's when we look at anticipated benefits, we recognize that 70% of our taxpayers do not have students in our district. So we were conscious as we crafted this proposal to make a proposal that really benefits the full community, and hopefully with information shared, the full community sees value in this proposal. So we want to talk about, again, reducing the cost of repairs over time, extending the useful lives of the facilities so that we're not asking for new facilities in the future at an even larger dollar amount potentially. We believe our schools are a critical reason why this community is ranked as one of the best communities in the country to live and to work and to raise a family. So we want to continue to invest in our community and believe all our community members benefit from having strong schools. As mentioned, I have about a 3-minute video if we think we're on time. And I'm getting a nod, so I will.
Yes, please go ahead and try and show it.
Right. I'm having trouble with the sound on it, it looks like. Let me see if. I'm having a little trouble on the sound. Let me see if it'll play if I just do it as part of the.
District. People want to come to Indian Prairie. We have a lot here about which.
Is that the sound?
It's just taking longer to load than the graphics, I think. Yeah, now we can't hear it. Oh.
Oh, Matt, did you enable sound for your video?
Oh, is it still not playing?
Yeah, it started to play and then it stopped, then the sound stopped.
Really? Okay.
'Cause I think there was a feature where you have to actually tell Zoom you want the sound to play with your video.
Okay.
I think it used to be up in the right corner somewhere.
So I did share sound. Let's try it. Let's see if this works again here.
That are making upgrades to their facilities,
Now, okay.
to their infrastructure that our district has not been able to do. It's more of just trying to tread water.
Safety and security in District 204 is our #1 priority. We realize that it's a must that we secure our schools if we want to provide an optimal learning experience for our students and for our staff. Secure our vestibules to provide more technology to our schools. We also hope to add additional staff that has a security focus to their position.
We are working in a building that specifically here at Waubonsie Valley High School that is needing some real improvements and things put in so that it can keep up with the ever-demanding changes that students need to be successful. This is an example of the infrastructure needs here at Waubonsie. We have pipes that are frozen, so we had to create new shower heads. Our tile is falling apart, and this locker room space is just way too small to meet the needs of our students. In our building and other buildings as old as Waubonsie, our stairwells don't service our students as well as they should. They are too steep and they are servicing other areas of the building at the same time.
We're the upper gym of Hill Middle School, where the roof is still an original roof to the building, about 40 years old. This roof leaks, it creates warping and distortions on the gym floor.
This elevator only goes to the second floor that only leads to the upper gym. So one of the things that we're looking for is for ADA accommodations to be added to Hill Middle School so that each and every student has access to their education.
Here at Owen Elementary, for kids in wheelchairs or even just little kids who have fine motor and motor issues, it's not adapted to their needs. They're coming with adapted seating to sit in throughout the day, and we simply do not have space to store it anywhere else but in the hallway. Things in the bathroom, everything's high, nothing's automatic, so it's really hard, again, for that fine motor control. There's not even a handicap accessible button for them to open the doors.
Indian Prairie is a great school system. We should be very proud of what it provides to our community. However, we need to be all in on serving Indian Prairie for the next 50 years. When schools flourish, we all flourish. What I want to ensure is that our schools are always flourishing, because that means our community will flourish.
Now is the time to invest in a safer,
Stronger.
204.
All right, so we do have an informational website at ipsd.org/saferstronger204. You can find a copy of this presentation and other details. We do have the ballots for both Will County and DuPage available as well. So you can see the ballot language and show how it will be presented in November. And thank you for teaching me a new Zoom trick. I'm learning something every day about technology. Every time we do this, it's something different, but available for any questions.
So we do have a couple questions. You may have answered them, but I think they bear repeating. So this referendum will not create a tax increase. So I want you to discuss a little bit about people's fear that there'll be an overlap of taxes. How is this referendum being staged in to make sure that people aren't paying twice, right?
Yeah, great question. So what this specific authorization, if the referendum is approved, is the authorization to issue the bonds, which we are asking for $420 million. Which I know is a large amount, but given the size of our district, as the 4th largest district, it's actually relatively reasonable from a rate or perspective. We can structure the repayment of those bonds so that we do not have the double taxation. So we can structure that so that those bonds can be issued and we can start work as soon as summer of 2025. But the repayments of that amount don't start until 2027. We also have 5 years to issue the bonds, and we would likely structure it so that we're issuing a little bit each year. So again, we're not issuing the bonds in advance and paying interest or incurring costs towards the taxpayers until we're actually ready to use the funds.
So you talked a little bit about class sizes. Will some of these efficiencies that you're trying to implement, will that help create smaller class sizes?
Yeah, great question again. So the referendum dollars specifically can only be used for capital and for building improvements. But I did mention we know that there's some operating efficiencies to be gained when we invest those capital dollars. So it's probably a few years down the line once we have an opportunity to really get in and invest and start making progress in our buildings. But our hope is that this does create some operating efficiencies which can be used on a programming side to address some of our highest priorities from a programming perspective, and class size reduction is one of those. Also make sure we kind of have a continual funding source for continual improvements, right? So the bonds obviously have a finite life. It's a finite amount of money, but we do believe that we can gain efficiencies which will create kind of a continual source of funds for building maintenance and operation needs.
And then we have a couple questions. What are the plans for the Wheatland and Indian Plains facilities?
Yeah, so those are facilities that are both about 100 years old. We are using them, but we're using them inefficiently, and they do not serve our students or serve our community as well as our community deserves. So part of the plan, if this referendum is successful, would be to move the programs that are there into the Burkett Center. So if you're familiar with our district, we currently have a freshman center at Neuqua Valley High School that's called the Burkett Center. We believe with some capital investment in the main campus, those freshmen can transition in the main campus and there's space available for them. And then that allows the Burkett Center to serve the STEPS program, the Gail McKenzie program, some of the program that's currently at our Indian Plains facility, as well as really some other district-wide programming as well. If you're familiar with where Neuqua is, it's a really exciting part of town. We have the library on that same campus. We have the park system that has a significant presence there. So there's really a tremendous opportunity for that Burkett Center to really become a community hub and have a lot of community use to it. So that is part of this proposal, and that does mean that the Wheatland and Indian Plains facility would be sunset. Again, both those buildings are over 100 years old. I think there's interest in those properties from a commercial standpoint. And ultimately that would be additional dollars if we're able to sell those properties that can be reinvested into other capital needs in the future.
So if this referendum passes and you are able to start these improvements, how many years would it take to make these updates? Do you have a plan for priorities?
Yeah, we do have a timeline, that high-level timeline that's available on our website. Statutorily, we would have 8 years total, because we would have 5 years to issue the bonds, and then after you issue a bond, you have 3 years to spend the bond fund. So this really is an 8-year window we're looking to open up in November. Safety and security is our number one priority, and we would start safety and security work as soon as summer of 2025. So I think you would see significant improvements at many district facilities as soon as summer of 2025. Once the safety and security priorities are addressed, our next priority is really to start focusing on those buildings that have some of the more significant needs. So that is Waubonsie, Hill, and Gregory. And then also have funding available again for other infrastructure and other needs throughout the district.
So in other words, it's been pretty carefully mapped out as well as you can.
Oh yeah, yes, we do have a schedule, again, an 8-year schedule that maps out that work, and that's available at again on our website. I'll say that the dollar amount we're looking at for summer 2025 would be about $40 million worth of work. So there is some significant work we can start on, and are confident we can start implementing. Again, within 6 months of a successful referendum.
So do we have any more questions for our presenters tonight? When we vote in November, or early voting, starting any time now, we need to remember to vote the whole ballot. I do have one more question, Matt, for you. What about air conditioning?
What about air conditioning? So if you've not been in our facilities in several years, we are all air conditioned. We had one of our we had a period where we weren't investing significantly in our buildings, but air conditioning was a priority, and we have phased in elementary air conditioning into all our elementary schools. As of, I believe, 2 years ago was sort of the final phase of that. I would say there is some additional HVAC work that we're looking to do as part of this referendum. So our gyms are not air conditioned, for example. We would not look at air conditioning those gyms per se, but looking at more of a airflow or air exhaust system where the hot air actually is sucked out of the gym as opposed to air conditioning that large space. We've piloted that with a few of our competition gyms at the high school and gotten really good feedback. So that's something we would look to expand into some other gyms in some other areas of the district. But our core classrooms, our libraries, in every building are now air conditioned. It is primarily just the gyms, some lunchrooms, and some other spaces like that in our buildings.
Right. So one more opportunity. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. But I'm going to say it once again. Please vote the whole ballot. These referendums are important. The candidates are important. And I hope this has helped give you some information that you need as you make your decisions. So I want to thank Matt and Dan for being here tonight. I would like to remind our audience that tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., the League of Women Voters of Naperville is holding a virtual candidate forum for the DuPage County Board District 5 candidates. Incumbent Republican candidate Patty Gustin and her opponent, Democrat Sabra Hader, are slated to appear. You can find the registration needed. It's free, but you need to register on the League website. And if you enjoyed this event and appreciate the community and civic work of the League of Women Voters of Naperville, I hope you'll consider joining. Just click the join link on our website. Once again, thank you everyone for coming to the program tonight, and in particular, thank you to our presenters. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.